Cancer, welcome to your February horoscope. My name is Adeana. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and in this video, we will be going over all of the energy you will be navigating for the month of February. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you align with my energy and enjoy my content. Now, let's get right into it. So, I do break these horoscopes down by week, and I select a chart for each week to give you a bit of a visual. So, week one. Coming right into the month on the first, we've got our full moon in Leo at 13 degrees. Now, this is going to be the last lunation in Leo that we have that's not an eclipse. We have the lunar nodes entering Leo and Aquarius in July, and wherever we have the nodes, and I'm telling you, I've been tracking this forever, those areas go through massive changes, whether it is emotional, psychological, or physical change of some kind in these areas of life. Now, this happening in your second and eighth house, I will be posting a separate forecast going over the nodes entering Leo and Aquarius and how that will show up for each sign. But make sure you check out your 2026 rising sign horoscope because I get into a bit of that as well. But this is your money houses. And so when it has to do with your finances, your personal finances, and your partner's personal finances and money coming in from outside resources like taxes, inheritance, debt, loans, and also psychological healing and transformation, deep fears, death, that's all in the eighth house. So, all of those themes and topics are up for review and change over the next 2 years. With this full moon being in your second house in Leo, which is your finances, your money, your personal values. Again, those areas of life are lit up, but you may also find that as soon as we come into February, the change starts. Like this year is a massive change for everyone, and it all begins in February. And for you, you may find that as soon as we get into the month, there's stuff around your finances that are showing up or that you're addressing, or maybe ways you make money. Now, on the third, we've got Uranus stationing direct. This is in your 11th house of friends and friendships and social groups, social connections, social circles. So, Uranus has been in Taurus for 8 years roughly. You've been navigating this energy for quite a while. Uranus kind of changing your friendships, introducing new people, taking people away, changing how you connect within groups and associations and social circles. But whatever you've been navigating, I would say around the last year, possibly with friends at the time of this station, there may be something coming in. Now, I personally think that this is going to be felt more collectively. I do think February is going to be a month where we see a lot of storms, a lot of interesting weather conditions in certain places. And I think that really just kind of starts, I mean, it's sort of starting now, but it's something that's going to be go on all through the month of February because even at the end, we've got that Mars square to Uranus, which is going to amp that up. So there could be something around that we're seeing at the time of the station, maybe a power. I mean, it could even be an earthquake somewhere. But once we get to the fifth, we've got Mercury forming a square to Uranus. So Mercury rules your 12th house of isolation, self-undoing, self-sabotaging things, people, places that are hidden. There could be something around that you're addressing. Maybe you hear a secret, especially too because it's in the eighth house. So I mean, this could definitely show up as that. I'm sure for some of you it will. You'll hear like a really interesting secret about somebody. But Mercury also rules your third house of community, neighbors, neighborhood, vehicles, siblings, cousins, also your mindset, the way you speak, the way you talk, the way you communicate, the way you write, that's all in the third house. But because it's your mind, like your self-expression, which is in that third house, you may experience some anxiety on this day. That's always a thing when we've got Mercury square Uranus. We can always experience anxiety or something kind of going on with our nervous system. Um, but I think we're going to hear a lot of interesting. For some of you, you could hear a lot of interesting information at this time. Secret, have some interesting conversations because of that eighth house. On the sixth, we've got Mercury entering Pisces. So you have Pisces in your ninth house of higher education, higher knowledge, long distance travel, philosophy, your belief systems. So we currently have the nodes there. These areas of life have been going through changes. So when Mercury enters Pisces, this is where you can get more creative. The ninth house rules publishing and So I'm sure for some of you too, it will show up in that way. Maybe this is when you decide to move forward with some type of course or something that you're doing around publishing, writing. On the 8th, we've got Venus square Uranus. So Venus is the ruler of your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate, and your 11th house of friends and friendships and social groups. Um, so there may be something interesting that you're having to deal with around home and family. With Uranus, I would say like electrical systems in the home. And this won't be for all of you, but for some of you, it could definitely show up. Or just something unexpected around a family member or around your home that you're having to navigate. So just be a bit aware of that. And it could show up too of just having to navigate something around friendships. Then we get into the second week of February, and on the 10th, we've got Venus entering Pisces. So we will start to have all of that energy in Aquarius move into Pisces, which then brings more focus to those ninth house themes and topics, which again are publishing or maybe traveling. Maybe the weather is like so chaotic here. You're like, I'm getting on a plane and I'm going. On the 11th, we've got Mercury entering shadow. And so this is when Mercury enters the degree that, or Mercury gets to the degree that it's going to retrograde back to. And so usually the day of the Mercury pre-shadow, moving forward, we want to pay attention to what is showing up around communications, conversation, and information, because we tend to be revisiting at that at the time of the Mercury retrograde. On the 12th, we've got Mercury forming a conjunction to the North Node. Whenever we have planets connect to the nodes, this is usually a really powerful day, whether we have some insight or receive some powerful information or have some type of really insightful or powerful conversation. These are days that we do want to pay attention to what is showing up. On the 13th, we've got Saturn entering Aries. And so we now have this Saturn, Neptune, and Aries energy as soon as we get into the month because Neptune entered Aries January 26th. Make sure you check out that forecast. I go over all of this Saturn and Neptune energy and get into all 12 rising signs and how that can be showing up collectively and individually. So make sure you check that out. But this is where there's a massive reset for you, Cancer, when it has to do with your career and your public reputation. Now, Saturn also rules your seventh house of relationships. So I personally think that a lot of you too will be having some changes around your relationships and one-on-one connections. Um, but this is where you can see Saturn in the when Saturn's transiting the zodiac, the houses that Saturn are transiting usually bring more responsibility or change of some kind where we have to mature. So you may find that's where that kind of starts to begin if it hasn't started already. Also, to Saturn sometimes can bring limitation or restriction, or things can just take a little bit longer in these areas of life. So you just want to be mindful of that over the next couple years. Then on the third week of February, we've on the 16th, we've got the Sun forming a square to Uranus and Mercury forming a trine to Jupiter. And this is where we could hear some really insightful information or have some really powerful conversations, especially Jupiter being in that first house. Um, I would say this would be a really beneficial time if you're wanting to publish anything or move forward with launching a course. That's some really positive energy to kind of work with. Now, the Sun square to Uranus can be the sun's still going to be in the eighth house at this point. Again, Uranus rules the electrical systems in our body, our nervous system. The sun house being in your eighth, ruling your second. There might be like something unexpected around a bill that you're having to address, or debt, or your money and finances. And then on the 17th, we have the solar eclipse in Aquarius at 28 degrees. So you really want to pay attention to what is showing up at this time because this is going to give you an idea of what those changes are going to be that you're going to be in for the next 2 years. Also, on the 17th, we've got Venus forming a conjunction to the North Node. Um, and I really love this for um just connecting in general with people. For you, Venus rules your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate, and your 11th house of friends. You could meet a lot of like really karmic people at this day. Like maybe you run into an old friend or you meet somebody new that ends up really helping you along your journey and your path. Also, this is something really powerful, possibly with a family member. On the 18th, we've got the sun entering Pisces. And then on the 20th, we've got our Saturn-Neptune conjunction. So this is the global reset. This is when it all happens. But of course, we've felt it leading up until this point. But there is, some type of reset going on when it has to do with your career and your public reputation, whether it is um, more responsibility in this area. I mean, Neptune does tend to make things a little bit more confusing and dissolve boundaries. So there is going to be something now that you're navigating, and I think too, like while Saturn is here, it could be possibly just some confusion around relationships or certain people in your life. On the 22nd, we're going to have our Venus trine to Jupiter, which I love because it's just this really beautiful energy in this mix of chaos. And Venus is going to be in your ninth house, forming a trine to Jupiter in your first. So I think this is where there can be something really beneficial coming in, maybe even a supportive family member coming in to help with something, a friend coming in to help with something, or something just really maybe you meet somebody with the Venus conjunction to the North Node, and that person just ends up giving you like this really amazing opportunity. And I'm sure for some of you, it will show up in that way. Then we get to the final week of February, and on the 25th, we've got Mercury stationing retrograde in Pisces. So again, there's something that you are rethinking and reevaluating around these ninth house themes and topics. I don't recommend really traveling at this time just because Mars is going to enter in here soon by the end of the month and that, or by March 2nd. And then, yeah, there's just a lot of energy, especially if you are traveling. There could be something that you're missing or you're unseeing, like maybe you're something that you're having to address with your flight. And even too, I felt intuitively with all the storms going on, there could be a lot of flights canceled. You may get stuck somewhere coming home, for a couple of days, just some delays. On the 27th, we've got our sun forming a conjunction to the North Node and Mars square to Uranus. So the lunar nodes primarily work with the sun and the moon. So when the sun and the moon form conjunctions to the North Node or the South Node, these are really powerful days where and remember the moon, it happens twice a month. With the sun, it only happens twice a year. So when the sun forms a conjunction to the North Node, there's usually something very powerful, very insightful, and enlightening showing up. So you definitely want to pay attention on that day, what is coming in. But also on that day, we have the Mars square to Uranus. And so I do think that we're going to see something around the weather, storms, possibly earthquakes. For you, this could be something sudden around your career, job placement, work. It could be something sudden around your partner's finances, or debt, money coming in from outside resources that you're having to address. Um, there could even be something like showing up psychologically you're having to navigate too, I would say, Cancer. It could show up in many ways, but I just being mindful and aware of kind of all the different ways it could show up is always helpful. On the 28th, we're going to have Venus conjunct Mercury retrograde. That's when we can have some, again, interesting conversations or information can be coming in. Now, because it's Mercury retrograde, this is where somebody could say something and we have to sit with it for a minute, reflect, reevaluate what was said. It could tend to be very insightful, or there could be miscommunication. So we want to be aware of all of those. Everything above. And then also on the 28th, we've got Mars activating the eclipse point. So I do think we'll feel this more collectively than individually. But when we have that eclipse at 28 degrees of Aquarius, depending on what was showing up for you, Mars is going to come and activate that eclipse point. So something else around that event may be coming in again that you're having to navigate and address. And because Mars will also still at that point be square to Uranus, but moving off of the square, it could be sudden. I do think this is going to show up more around that stuff that's going on in Minnesota with the riots, stuff like that. Like if we just talk about how it's showing up collectively, storms, weather, and I think more riots, more activism, more people kind of standing up for certain freedoms, for their beliefs. Having Mars now in Aquarius, I think we're definitely going to see more people taking action based on ideas and beliefs. All right, Cancer. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And I hope this helps you navigate the energy for the month ahead. And I will connect with you in the next one. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.